Is this Allison Cartwright? Yes, it's me. Who's asking? I am Thomas Dilwell. My wife Rebecca works at the hospital with your husband John. She is a nurse. Unfortunately, I have information you need to know. I've always known John. I can't pinpoint the moment when I met him because he has always been in my life. He lived just a few streets away from me, and we went to the same kindergarten. We played together all the time, and his mother loved to embarrass us by reminding us that his first word was Ellie. Even my earliest memory is connected with him. I remember crying because another boy took my stuffed unicorn away from me, and John pushed him away, gave it back to me, and gave it to me with a big smile on his face. We grew up together. We went to the same school and played at someone's house in the evenings. Our mothers became friends and coordinated our meetings and even birthdays. John was a couple of weeks older than me, so although both families had their own celebrations, we usually had a joint party for friends. Although John and I were very close as children, we became more independent as we grew older. We still met every other day to do homework and spend time together, but we had different groups of friends at school. Over time, his circle of friends expanded to include several girls, and he began to spend more time with them than with me, which made me jealous and resentful. I knew I was one of the popular and pretty girls, which was important to my vain teenage nature, and we got along very well, so him not asking me out and paying attention to other girls seemed like the end of the world. I spent more than one evening crying about it, but I didn't have the courage to ask John about it. He was quite popular, and I was afraid that if I insisted, he would stop communicating with me, considering me too intrusive and demanding. Everything changed in our second year. Word got around that one of the guys on the football team was interested in me, and John heard about it. That same day, he asked me to meet him in the park near our houses after school. When we both got there, he asked me to be his girlfriend with a box of chocolate hearts. It was a little awkward, but at the time it seemed like a grand romantic gesture, and all the jealousy and his behavior immediately flew out of my head. We were finally together. We were too young for anything more than going to the movies and a few stolen kisses, but we were happy. Of course, I asked him why he waited so long to invite me. I must have been incredibly naive because he said he always wanted to be with me, but he was afraid he wouldn't be a good guy, so he trained with other girls first to make sure we would be the perfect match. I not only accepted his explanation, but I was proud of it. He cared so much about me that he went through all this for us. It was very pleasant, but now I can't help but shudder at the memory. When we entered high school, we discussed our future plans. John wanted to become a doctor like his father and was considering training options outside of our city. He wanted to work at the local hospital, St. Michael's, but the local college did not have a good reputation in the medical field. As for me, I loved children and got along well with them. I earned good money as a nanny, so I was used to handling children. As one of the top students in my class, I was also used to helping my friends learn, so I began to consider a career in elementary school teaching. It wasn't the most lucrative job, but it gave me the opportunity to earn a living while enjoying my work. As I told my father, this job compensated for the lack of money in other ways. The local college offered everything I needed, so I planned to stay in town. We didn't come to these decisions overnight. We discussed our goals all the time, and when we both decided on the future, we realized that our time together was coming to an end. We cried, but I wanted to try a long-distance relationship, but John convinced me it was a bad idea. It might have taken him a very long time to become a doctor, and by then his plans might have changed. It wouldn't be fair for any of us to put our lives on hold for potentially 10 years. We had a good cry, but I decided to be positive and make the most of our last months together. For my 18th birthday, he gave me a very beautiful necklace. It was made of silver and had a little unicorn inside the heart. He said it would be a reminder of him, and I rarely took it off. Although this was pleasant, our relationship began to deteriorate. Now that we were adults, John began to pressure me about sex. I refused him under the pretext that I wanted to wait until I was ready, but he raised this issue every 2 days. I had the perfect fairy tale in my head. I wanted it to be romantic and beautiful and almost impromptu, so I never told him about it, answering that I was not ready when he brought up the topic. My plan would be for us to have a whole summer together to explore each other before breaking up, giving us plenty of time. If I had been more open and honest or less focused on achieving the perfect night, what happened next could have gone very differently. Days passed, graduation was approaching, and John had not yet invited me, and I began to get nervous. We were still spending a lot of time together and were definitely dating, so I took it for granted that we would go together, but my plan included hints about how the night might go when he asked me out, and as time went on, he didn't ask. We were at my house while my parents were away, and I finally asked him about it a week before the event. "Hey, John, I know you don't have to ask me to prom, but we're still going together, right? We haven't discussed it yet." "Well, about that." He had a guilty look on his face. "Sorry, Ellie, but I'm going with Jenny Hopkins." "What? Are you kidding me?" "Listen, Ellie, I love you, you know that. But I've been asking you for sex for months, and you won't agree. I've accepted that, and I won't ask you for sex again until you're ready, but I'm not going to be celibate. Jenny agreed to have sex if I took her to prom, so I'm doing it." "Are you breaking up with me?" "No, I don't want that. It doesn't mean anything. Look, you don't want sex, but I still love you and want to date you. I'll just have sex on the side, and we can continue dating. That way, everyone will be happy." "I can't believe it, John. Tell me it's a joke." I started crying, but he was silent. He awkwardly tried to console me, but I didn't want it. In between screams, I broke up with him, told him I didn't want to see him anymore, tore my unicorn necklace, breaking it, and threw it at him. He tried to object, but I was not in the mood to listen, and he soon left so as not to worsen the situation. I cried all night, and my mother persuaded my father not to go out and kill my now ex-boyfriend. John actually took Jenny to prom, and I believe they spent the night together. I went with my friend Rick, who couldn't find a date, and had to apologize to him at the end of the evening. Although we had an agreement or whether we wanted to go just as friends, my jealousy and mood that night did not make me good company. He was understanding and comforted me, and I promised him lunch at my expense to make up for it. For the rest of the summer, I avoided John and places where he might be. He tried to contact me through friends, even came to my house once, but my father made it clear to him what he wanted to do with him, and John wisely left. Rick asked me out on a lunch date, and I said yes. We both knew we'd go our separate ways in the fall, so we focused on having fun. He was a good guy and was gentle and patient when he took my virginity. John's betrayal made me realize that I was missing out on something, and I became less judgmental and enjoyed life a little more. I didn't become promiscuous, but I gave up the idea that I needed the one to have sex. Academically, I followed my plans and attended a local college to pursue a degree in education. I dated a little and had a couple of relationships, but never found someone to share my life with. I knew that part of it was trauma from the incident with John, and part of it was because I still had feelings for him. He was such an important part of my life that without him I felt empty. How can you replace someone who has always been in your life? After graduating from college, I got an internship at a local school. I taught several grades and found that I enjoyed teaching younger children the most, so after getting my license, I began working as a first-grade teacher. I didn't earn much, but it was enough to leave my parents' house, rent an apartment with 2 friends, and even save some money. It has also been very rewarding to see my children progress and learn different things every day. The next big change in my life happened one Friday evening while I was out with friends. I worked for several years, and although I dated, I was not in a serious relationship. Lee had recently broken up with her boyfriend, and Christy and I were trying to cheer her up. We had a nice dinner at a local Italian restaurant, and then went to the bar for a drink and a chat. I was drinking my second glass of wine while waiting for Lee and Christy, who were smoking outside, and keeping an eye on our things when I heard a voice calling out to me. "Ellie, is that you?" John. It took me a moment to recognize him. It's been 10 years since we last saw each other, and, a little tipsy, my first reaction was a wide smile. My initial enthusiasm faded as memories of our breakup returned. Over the course of 10 years, the pain became dull, but did not disappear completely. I didn't want to make a scene in a public place, but I also didn't feel like talking to him, so I quickly cooled down. Long time no see, probably. John was much more pleased to see me and did not catch my mood. "Ellie, it's been so long. What are you doing here? Hey, let's find a table and chat." "Sorry, John, but today is not a good day. I'm here with my friends and don't want to leave them alone." My refusal did not discourage him, and he was persistent. "Okay, not today, but how about lunch tomorrow? I'll treat you." I only agreed to get rid of him, but part of me was really glad that he wanted to see me again, so I didn't put up much of a fight. We met the next day, and he did everything right. As soon as we sat down, and before we started talking about anything else, he apologized. He admitted that he was immature, and while he wasn't wrong for wanting sex, he wishes he had been more honest with me and ended the relationship since we weren't compatible. I let him know that if he had taken me instead of Jenny, he would have gotten what he wanted too. It was partly my fault for not being able to communicate, and if we had both been more open, we could have ended our relationship on good terms. When we reached this understanding, he surprised me again. He took the package out of his pocket and showed it to me. It was my old unicorn necklace. He took it when I left it and fixed it. He kept it all these years as a reminder of me and always hoped that one day I would take it back. "Ellie," he said, "I don't expect you to take it right away, but I want to see you more often and hope we can get back to the point where you can wear it again." I tried to. I tried really hard. Part of me was firmly convinced that he would do no good, and I tried to listen to her, but it didn't matter. It was John, my John, and he was back. All the feelings that I once felt for him came flooding back, and we began to meet often. I built walls around myself, and he destroyed them with his charm and affection. It took him a couple of months, but he convinced me that he had really matured, and I agreed to become his girlfriend. John settled in well. He achieved his goal and was now working as a doctor at St. Michael's Hospital. His schedule was an issue. The hospital was understaffed, and he often took on extra shifts. His argument was that he should accumulate capital while he was young and uncommitted, and when he had a family or a more important position, he could reduce his hours and spend more time with me. I wasn't happy, but it was a smart plan for the long term, so I tried to adapt. After a couple of years of dating, I felt very confident. We had an active sex life, we got along well, and there were no real tensions other than his work schedule. On one of the rare occasions when he had a day off, we went to a nearby beach for the weekend, and he proposed to me at sunset. It was the happiest moment of my life, and I couldn't answer right away, hugging him and crying with happiness. We married a few months later, and I gave birth to twins, Eric and Laura, shortly before my 32nd birthday. Our family life followed the already planned path. We kept separate finances, each contributing to the common account in proportion to his salary. I took time off from school after having my children and became a stay-at-home mom for a few years while John continued to work. He wasn't much help since he was rarely home, but both sets of grandparents lived nearby, so I always had someone willing to help. When the twins grew up and went to school, I returned to my old job. Because I had a more flexible and predictable schedule, I did most of the housework and was the primary caregiver for the children. We went out as a family every weekend, and when John was home, he spent time with the kids and was an involved parent, but it was so rare. I didn't keep track of his shifts, but it seemed to me that there were more of them every year and not the other way around. This had always been a sore subject in our relationship, and it was getting worse. We had a couple of big fights where I accused him of avoiding being home on purpose, and he swore that the hospital was woefully understaffed and they needed more people until the new hires passed all the checks. But once that happened, he will be able to demand a normal schedule. We were at an impasse. I was becoming increasingly irritated that my husband seemed to avoid being at home with his family, and he was spending even more time away from home due to the tension between us when we were alone. In such a situation, I received a call from Thomas. Thomas, or Tom as he asked me to call him, asked to see me because he had something I should see. With a knot in my stomach, I agreed to meet him the next day, since I had no classes and I could sneak away unnoticed for coffee. We met in a small cafe near the city center, and after a few empty pleasantries, he told me news that broke my heart. His wife, Rebecca, Becky, had been acting suspicious for some time. She started taking extra shifts, but didn't answer the phone when Tom called her during them. While this in itself was not strange, upon calling the hospital he learned that she was not supposed to be working those shifts at all. He thought carefully about what to do and chose the cheapest reliable option. He installed a tracker on her phone, and during her next extra shift, it showed her at a motel near St. Michael. He didn't give details, but when he visited, he learned from the guy at the front desk that his wife was a regular there and always shared a room with Mr. John Cartwright. I suspected that he had bribed the guy because Tom also managed to obtain video and audio recordings of the two. The reason Tom wanted to meet, other than breaking the news in person, was because he felt he had to show me the video, especially some of the audio. They didn't reveal their whole story in the post-sex conversation, but we could draw enough conclusions from it. They had no intention of leaving us, and both were happy to just have a lover on the side. Apparently Becky was mad at my husband because he was looking at another nurse. It was obvious from their conversation that Becky wasn't the first nurse John had slept with, and it seemed like he didn't plan for her to be the last either. They vaguely mentioned the luxury hotel John had stayed at for a conference last month, and Tom confirmed that his wife had gone there too. We decided to see if it was real, but there was no mention of it anywhere, and neither Tom nor I had seen a brochure about it. We just took their word for it at the time. The bastard didn't have time to put the children to bed, but was relaxing with his mistress. When our meeting ended, I asked Tom for copies of the notes. He sent everything he had to my email, but let me know that they would not be accepted in court if I decided to file for divorce. I thanked him, but it didn't matter to me. I needed proof so he couldn't gas me or deny my accusations, and as a guarantee I wouldn't be called the bad guy. I returned to work and was glad that I had no classes for the rest of the day. My whole life was turned upside down, and I felt a strong sense of déjà vu. I should have seen this coming. Our sex life was as intense as ever. John wanted sex every day, and I felt bad if I rejected him too much, so we ended up making love more often than I wanted. Now I feel really stupid. I went ahead to make his life as easy as possible. I kept a spotless home, raised our two children, gave him a sex life that a teenager would be wary of, and this is how he repaid my efforts. I was furious, but most of all disappointed. I felt my image of him shatter in real time. John was my hero as a child, my popular boyfriend and crush as a teenager, and even our breakup was not entirely his fault. There was always a voice inside me telling me that if I had been more open, John wouldn't have gone to Jenny Hopkins. As soon as we were reunited, he became in my eyes a brave doctor and the father of my children. For most of my life he could do no wrong, but that was it. I went from adoring him to seeing him for what he was, a weak man who constantly valued sex over his family and loved ones. I spent most of my life chasing him, but he didn't want to fool me anymore. I knew that Lee, my former roommate, had gone through a difficult divorce, but I also knew that she had come forward. I asked her for her lawyer's contact information and, taking the next morning off, went to see him to inquire about my options. While I didn't want to ruin John's life, I did want him to suffer a little. Given our jobs and our daily routine, I will most likely get sole custody of our children, and that will mean child support. John's salary was also noticeably higher than mine, so I angrily wanted a hefty amount of alimony to be indicated on the papers. The amount combined with alimony will affect him enough that he can survive, but taking his whores to luxury hotels will no longer be in the plans. I arranged with my lawyer to have the documents ready by the end of the week and prepared for our conversation. On Friday after school, I took the kids to my parents' house and left them upstairs while I informed the parents of the situation. "I knew it," the father said. "I never liked that scoundrel ever since prom. You deserve better, Ellie." It was both heartbreaking and comforting to see my father hug me tightly. I may be an adult now, but I was his little girl, and it hurt him to see me suffer. I had been under control up to this point, but that hug brought tears to my eyes. I cried in my father's arms as my mother joined the group hug. They both promised to be by my side and help me in any way they could. Feeling supported and approved after this, I went home and prepared for the upcoming confrontation. I quickly cooked and ate dinner and then waited in the living room for John to come home. He arrived a little after 8 in the evening and, having changed his clothes, went down to the living room. "John, I think we need to talk." "Ellie? Should I be worried?" he said in a teasing tone, trying but failing to diffuse the growing tension. "I got a call from Tom Dillwell, Becky's husband. Seems like you've been doing something interesting during all those extra shifts, don't you think?" "What did he say to you?" he said. It was clear that he wanted to know how much I knew so he could lie about everything else and make himself look better, but I didn't give him an inch to lie to me. "I know everything, John." "Listen," he sighed, "I'm sorry you found out about this. You're still the love of my life, I swear it's true. What I'm doing in the hospital is pointless, it's just a little fun. What we have is so much more and I wouldn't trade it for anything, Ellie." I could hardly believe his audacity, but he continued to dig deeper. "I admit it was wrong of me, but no one here takes anything from anyone. I really don't care what you would or wouldn't trade, John. We took vows. We swore to be faithful to each other. There was no quick fun release clause in our vows. You knew very well that loyalty was important to me, especially after our first relationship went through. Well, sure, I admit I screwed up, but I truly believe it's not a big deal. Look, Ellie, I'm not going to replace you, and I still enjoy being with you. It's just, well, there are two things. First of all, you are not with me all the time. You know that I have a very strong sex drive. Whenever I'm home, you're rejecting me half the time that I have a very high sexual appetite. When I'm home, you already refuse me half the time. I don't refuse you half the time. You have absolutely no sense of time, John. 7 in the evening on a weekday, when the kids are doing their homework, is not the time for quick meetings. You are not a teenager. You should be able to control yourself. I rarely refuse at night, and when it happens, it's for good reason. We make love more than some couples do in an entire month." "Well, yeah, but I still need more. That's my point. With everything we do, I still want more, and we both know we're already having more sex than you'd like. What's the harm if I take some of this burden off of you and do this when we're not together? If you're a sex addict, you need to get treatment, not sleep with every bitch that looks your way. John, you have 2 kids. The student behavior should have ended 10 years ago when you married me. I don't see how it's hurting you. It's not the only reason either. Part of it is to experience something new. There's only a limited number of times we can have sex and keep it fresh. By adding a little variety, I can bring new things into our bedroom, and it helps keep me interested. Ellie, you're reaping the benefits too. If I never slept with another woman, our sex life would be extremely boring. Are you really listening to yourself? If you wanted to experiment or try something new, you could have just told me. In all these years, I've only turned you down on one thing. I've tried almost everything else at least once, and I've had some problems with some ideas. I wasn't so angry anymore. Mostly I was sad that the most important relationship of my life was wasted on such a selfish person. If you weren't happy, you should have told me, John. Look, I'm not saying I would agree to an open relationship, but I would prefer to have this conversation and find a solution that we both were happy with. Instead, you deceived me and betrayed me. Lies hurt as much as sex itself. Well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I didn't think you'd ever find out, and that would be the perfect solution. I'd get the sex I want, and you wouldn't be hurt. That would be the perfect situation. If you just closed your eyes to this, Ellie, you have nothing to lose from this, and we both could be happy. I can't believe it, John. I was already thinking about divorce when I first found out, but I really wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself. Call me stupid, but part of me was clinging to the hope that you would say something that would allow me to forgive. If you were full of remorse and willing to make amends and go to couples therapy with me, I could try. But you don't regret cheating on me at all, do you? You're happy with yourself, that's the only problem. In your eyes, it's that I don't support your actions. It was clear what he was like. John was not the prize I always thought he was. He only cared about his needs and wants, and I was just a convenience. Divorce, really? Ellie, it's not necessary. If it's that important to you, I'll stop. Too little, too late, John. You're no longer making decisions. Even if you were full of remorse, I'm not sure we could handle it, but you're not really going to stop. I know you, and you're planning to lay low to the bottom for a while and just better cover my tracks when I let my guard down. The guilty look on his face gave him away. I stood up and, sighing, told him that he would receive the papers tomorrow when he returned home. Ellie, we're fine. I really love you and the kids. Please don't ruin our family over this. It finally dawned on him that I wouldn't put up with this anymore, and his voice shook. I want to be married to you, and I love my children. The saddest thing is that I believe you. I really believe that you love me in your own way, but you love me as a thing, like a car or a pet. You don't love me as an equal partner. I paused and sighed. There was no point in being angry anymore. John was a defeated man. You think you're entitled to more than I am, and that I shouldn't know. When we got married, we vowed to unite our lives, John. We don't have to share everything, but we have to share everything important. I shared with you your worries and hopes. You knew my thoughts and fears. Meanwhile, you hid a whole side of your life from me because you knew that I would not accept what you did. You did this not for my good, but for yours. There was no point in delaying any longer, so I ended my speech. Don't worry about the kids. I'll tell them that we don't get along anymore and Daddy will be living separately. I asked for sole custody with unlimited visitation rights, since your schedule doesn't allow you to take them often. I'll let you see them when you can. Convenient, but you will have to make an effort to see them. However, if our parents or close friends ask, I will not hide the real reason for the divorce, so please do not lie to them. With these words, I took off the necklace and carefully handed it to him. I wish you a good life, John, but not with me. We both understood what this gesture meant. The story that began on the playground ended 30 years later. I will cry about what could have been when I'm alone, but now is not the time. That night John slept in the guest room, and we never shared a bed again. He tried to drag out the divorce and asked me to go to couples therapy, but after going through all his delay attempts, I was finally free. I was awarded a fair amount of alimony, child support, and house support until the children were adults, at which point the house would be sold and the profits divided. I tried to make it easy for John to take the kids after the divorce, but he rarely did. At best, he took them for a weekend once every couple of months. Laura said that the apartment where he lived was not very clean, and they always ordered food. He seemed to have a lot of girlfriends, but none of them stuck around. For me, I didn't want to date much for a couple of years. Being a single mother to 2 young children was a full-time job alongside my day job, and John's betrayal left me wary of men for some time. However, this may soon change. Maria is one of my students, and she had difficulty adjusting after her mother left. I worked with her father, Mark, and the school psychologist to help her, and by the end of the year she caught up with the program and was much happier. Today was the last day before the summer holidays, and when Mark came to pick up Maria, he asked me out on a date. We'll move slowly, but he's been hurt before and understands where I'm coming from, so I hope I make the right choice this time.